why have we been doing this so long? What's our partnership based on? What keeps us together instead of at each other's throat? Or I guess we have been at each other's throat now and then.
With the new arising of AI and all the opportunities there, I see that same kind of explosion of possibility that I saw back in the day when it was first the internet and programming from 0 to 1.
When you built stuff like that for yourself, when you built things where you felt just deeply what the customer, like you said, what they really needed, what would really satisfy the end result. And you're not just building a spec, you're not just delivering something to check it off the list. You produce a feel, and it's very addictive. Welcome to Walk and Talk. I'm Paul, the CEO.
I'm Chris, the CTO of OwnerRez.
Of OwnerRez, right. That's important. So you and I have been walking and talking for a long time, right?
Yeah, over a decade now.
Yeah, 2 decades maybe. So we decided to turn this into something for other people to be a part of and see, and who knows where it'll go, who knows where we'll walk, where we'll talk. Why have we been doing this so long? What's our partnership based on? What keeps us together instead of at each other's throat? Or I guess we have been at each other's throat now and then.
Yeah, we have been at each other's throat, but we have a good way of dealing with that.
So for me, it comes down to 3 words, and you know the 3, I think. We've talked about this somewhere: appetite, innovation, and execution. And I've had a whole bunch of the appetite. Ambition maybe is a nicer word for it than appetite. You've had the innovation in spades, and then we've kind of just executed ruthlessly for a long time and kind of left that formula alone. Would you say? Would you agree?
We both chase that execution. That's what makes it all work.
Right.
From the innovation side, it tends to happen, you just see something, you're talking to people, that's really where you start to get ideas. Either you're doing it yourself, which is where we got started way back in the day, starting with vacation rentals, seeing how it works, figuring that out and seeing what we needed to build for ourselves. And then you start branching out, talking to other people that might have slightly different needs and figuring out how to make everything work.
Right. So I have never run out of that first ingredient. I don't know why. But that appetite, that ambition, greed,
going on
maybe.
Forever. It should.
I've never run out of it. And I think that's what kind of makes us different and maybe has held up for a long period of time is just no matter what we do or have, I'm always thinking, oh, man, that thing you just talked about last night, no, that's the new thing. Let's go do that. So, and then you pop up and go, yeah, no, this is how we're going to do it. And then we just keep executing.
Yeah, and I think the appetite is really interesting because people glorify that in athletes, musicians, something like that, where somebody's obsessed, practicing 12 hours a day. They expect that, but not really in business. Some people look down on that, but it really is the same thing.
Yeah.
You're just really excited, just really into that.
First
you're
into
producing,
the gym.
You're building, yeah.
Last out, yeah. So, do you think that formula is going to keep working? I mean, is there a point when it stops? From my standpoint, it's like I'm out of appetite. I'm done. And from your standpoint, it's like the well's dry. I can't think of anything else.
You always got to refresh the well. You got to rejuvenate. You got to keep going. But it's worked for 20 years. It's going to work for another 20.
It really all started, you and I coming together. I think there's been like 3 phases. But it first started, of course, with Ed way back in the day. Right?
Yeah.
Both kids bouncing stuff off each other, realizing what you're really good at, you realizing what I'm really good at, and then Ed sitting there going like, oh, these two are just freaks. Like, you just stay out of the way.
Yeah, back when we were teenagers, just coding up different projects for different clients.
The next phase was the vacation rental segment, the vacation rental phase, when we started talking about how to lose money and how to invest in property and, what are we going to do to, do the next phase of our life. And then we saw how dry the market was on software. And so we started kicking around ideas, which I then ran off on my own and started doing for a bunch of years. And you weren't a part of that yet, but you were there doing your own thing. You had other companies going on. And we would talk in the background, and then it kind of just emerged into this thing we were both doing. And at one point I was like, man, this has got to be 50-50. We got to start over. Whatever I was doing, I got to start over. We got to come all in you got to want it as much as I want it. 2013, and then
Yeah, that was a really great time, and that's when stuff started taking off because we were both just as invested. I think that decision was key, coming together and saying, hey, we've worked together for a really long time. We trust each other to put forth the effort, and this is going to be really cool when we get done with it.
yeah, and it was immediately successful, right? 2013. Laughing because what was it? 4 more years after that point before
Good, 4 or 5 years
before we figured out the revenue problem, before we started making money, made a little bit of money, and then eventually figured out how to make that predictable so that there was enough runway where you knew that money could pay for you, that money could pay for me, the next guy, employee number 3, employee number 4, and it could get started. So
yeah, well, that was the leap of faith because we didn't really quite know it was going to work in the beginning. We had these burn down charts, we had these Excel spreadsheets where we looked at how much money that we had in the bank, looked at our pregnant wife, thought, can we actually make this come together and provide for everybody before we run out of money?
right, good times.
Yeah.
So let's go a little deeper. So who is Chris Hines? What do I not know? I know more than anyone except maybe Devin. Go deeper. Go earlier for me. Go.
Let's go back to the beginning. So I'm Chris Hines. Now I'm the CTO of OwnerRez. Back in the day, I was this little 6 or 8 year old kid when I first got started getting excited about computers. I remember my dad had this old green screen 8086 computer with the 2 floppy drives, and we would spend all of our time trying to get games to work, messing around with basic programs, typing them in, trying to make the PC speaker do some sounds. And that's how I cut my teeth on programming. I've been doing it since then and just getting more and more excited about it. It's something where the more you do, the more possibilities you see. And that led me to, in my teens, actually starting to work professionally. I got really lucky back then with a guy that ended up hiring both Paul and I and bringing us into contracts that he'd gotten. And he taught us a lot about talking to the customer and figuring out what the customer needs, not necessarily what they want, but actually what the solution is going to be. And that history informed a lot of what we ended up doing at OwnerRez. That desire for user experience, that for me, really enjoying optimization and making stuff a lot faster. That's a philosophy that I've believed and shown a lot. Speed is a feature.
I was going to say, if you didn't say it, I was going to right there. Speed is a feature.
Yep. And you see that from the stats, you know, apocryphal or not, about Amazon changing millions of dollars of revenue based on half a second of response time. We really believe that makes a difference. The feel makes a difference when you get into the app. It's not just the features, but the overall feel. And throughout time, we doubled down on all of that. And now, with the new arising of AI and all the opportunities there, I see that same kind of explosion of possibility that I saw back in the day when it was first the internet and programming from 0 to 1. How about you?
Thinking back, all the way back. So I didn't have kind of the natural inclination toward programming, toward computers. It was there. It was in the background. I had an older brother. There was I was going to say work associate, but really a church associate for my parents. This is before Ed. That all kind of pulled me in, really. What I wanted to be free of the structure I was raised in, the very religious structure I was raised in, the way that my parents, my family lived. Completely hated it, hated every part of it. Felt like I was in prison for a long, long time. I remember actually in high school when I graduated feeling like I had just gotten out of prison because I went to school at the same place I went to church, and I felt like that was the last I had to do either one. So I got out of prison twice on the same day. But it was that conduit, that work conduit of wanting to be free of all of that, that pushed me towards, this is mid to late 90s. So, the dot-com boom, the government was funding, in Northern Virginia area, the government was funding every project everywhere, whether it be the old client-server, SQL Server setups, or whether it was the new web app stuff that came around in 2000, 2001. So it was wanting to be in business, wanting to work for myself, wanting to be free of everything else that kind of pushed me back toward, you need to learn the discipline. You need to learn how to do these things. And that speed is a feature, that feel of software, I think is one of the couple of things you and I very much overlap on innately. I mean, there's obviously now many things we overlap on and many things that we see the same way, culture-wise and how we run the team. But the feel of knowing something really feels right and feels good. And you talked about it from an optimization standpoint, but I remember long ago looking at like the wars between Google search engine and Yahoo search engine in 2000, 2001, where Yahoo is using Google. It's at the top, it's powered by Google. No one knew what Google was at that point. But everybody kept using it and leaving the Yahoo homepage because it just felt better, it worked. And when you built stuff like that for yourself, when you built things where you felt just deeply what the customer, like you said, what they really needed, what would really satisfy the end result. And you're not just building the spec, you're not just delivering something to check it off the list. You produce a feel, and it's very addictive. And so that led me through a number of companies, some of which we've both been a part of. I worked at the Washington Post for a period of time. I worked at the Federal Reserve for a period of time. Liked and hated all of it. Liked it because it was, some of the work was interesting and I could get in and make a difference. Hated all of it because, again, I felt like I was back in prison, like in the 90s with my parents. Couldn't escape, always working for somebody else, wasn't able to craft my own way and make my own decisions. So I think for me, that spirit of, I'm going to call it independence. It probably was called rebellion when I was a kid, but I'll call it generously to myself, independence. I think that's probably, if there's a through line, that's it from there till now. And thankfully we got to that point, 2017, 2018, wherever that pin drop was.
Yep.
Probably along the revenue model somewhere we realized it. But that's the through line, I think, for me.
Yeah. So we got fast and rebellious. That's basically
that should be our
right
tagline, right? So the thing that brought us together was Ed, right?
Yeah.
If I had to point at any one thing, it would be Ed, and I know you agree. We both owe him quite a bit. Ed Berg was an individual in both of our lives. I think he was part of your church.
Yeah, part of my church. Was never really quite sure which part of your life he was.
Yeah, I met Ed through, I think, a church affiliation as well. Our lives were very church heavy, if that's not coming through.
Yep.
Very church heavy.
My parents as well.
Yeah. So I met Ed through someone at our church who was looking for young people to help in software and IT and that kind of thing. I think I was not quite out of the house. I think I was still in high school. And you must have been 14, 15?
Yeah.
Because you're a few years younger.
So back then.
Yeah. So and so Ed had some contract work in the DC area, and he knew you and he knew me. We did not know each other at that point, but then we came together and kind of sniffed each other out. And I realized early on that you were much better than I was at coding, and I was, of course, again very hungry to just be away from my stuff going on. And
I realized you were much better at me at focusing, right? Like, you could work for hours and hours and hours. I learned a lot from that.
Yeah. Trying to, my thing was I wanted to deliver. I always wanted to deliver, execute, deliver, make someone happy, and move on. Right? That's how you grow. That's how you roll the snowball. So we set up a couple of companies with Ed. Originally, Assisted Solutions was the first one. That was late 90s. Mm-hmm. We were both still like teenagers. Kind of funny to think of now, but Ed's a great guy who was very sales focused, had an IT background, but I think he saw back then that if he kind of just focused on sales and got out of the way, you and I would
we were
happily,
cranking.
eagerly turn the crank. So from my standpoint, that's how I remember the kind of coming together. I remember you always carrying the desktop under your shoulder, sometimes walking around without shoes on. You always had the giant machine with you all the
even
time.
back then, I had to have it fast, and laptops were not fast back in the day. It's worth lugging it.
So after Assisted Solutions, that eventually turned into Data Research Group, and we expanded a little there. We had 10 or 15 people at one point, mostly government contracts. I had a stint in college during that time period and dropped out and came back. You also had a stint in college, right?
Same. Yeah. I think mine was between Assisted Solutions and Data Research Group.
And then Data Research Group kind of just broke up. I believe it continued on kind of under a different direction later. But again, there was that independence through line for me that just I felt stifled. I felt like we weren't growing, we weren't doing big, important work. It was just kind of paying the bills and that kind of thing. So we all kind of amicably went our separate ways. That's when I went to the Washington Post, worked in media for a little bit. You were actually there during that time period as well?
Yep. Yeah, I worked at Data Research Group for a while after, and remember back then, like we tried our hand at a couple of different products. We had this experience. None of them really took off, but
debt mediation.
We did. Yep. Debt mediation. We did Gift Wrap Plus. We did. What was the other one? The insurance cataloging.
Insurance catalog. I can't even remember. ClickSafe.
Yeah, ClickSafe. Yeah.
ClickSafe. The components, the .NET components shop, which at the time
which is where the
was,
forums started. That's
right.
where the forums really started, and that was a big thing for OwnerRez a couple years later.
Yeah, actually, you just blew my mind with that. So I was thinking how being a part of community and growing our product through the eyes of our community has been such a big deal for us. And that really started back during those days. I mean, this is several businesses back. We're talking 2 decades, 2005, 2003. And we had a forum, a community aspect to it then. We would, for no money, just run around and fix whatever they wanted, just for the thrill of it, just for the feeling of accomplishment and satisfaction. So even in those days, we were, doing whatever we could to be fast and make people happy.
Yeah, and then that all transitioned into OwnerRez eventually. You started when I was a resource. We'd talk about it a lot and how exciting it could be, build different features. I remember the first time we got the inquiry parsing actually working. So the inquiries would come in and it would say, hey, here's where you mail your check, because that's how everything worked back in the day. There wasn't really credit cards. Credit cards were not used for real estate, for vacation rental type of transactions. Now, that's another thing where we were very familiar with e-commerce through our component sales and through a couple of other things. So that became natural of, hey, how do we take the next step and make this a lot more fluid?
Right. Yeah, a lot of pieces there that finally came together. And then in 2013, we eventually just kind of scrapped everything before it and said, let's start this thing up like it's brand new, do it right, modernize as best we can as of the time now, interface-wise, team-wise, and get this puppy rolling. And it wouldn't be for a few more years before we actually hit our stride. 2017, that time period, getting the channels, Airbnb on board. But yeah, long and I would say long and tortured road. Would you say? Maybe not.
I don't know, tortured.
Not tortured road. A lot of twists.
A lot of effort. A
Yeah.
lot of twists. Yeah, a lot of twists for sure. But effort through, and always thinking we kind of saw the light at the end of the tunnel, but it took a while to get there. You just keep plugging away.
Right.
So what is OwnerRez and why does it exist? Paul and I started OwnerRez. Paul started first when he got his first vacation rental. We started building software for it. And we realized there was a need for automation and structured data, being able to capture and manage all of your data. And that grew a lot. Now OwnerRez is really a platform for all kinds of vacation rental hosts and managers to integrate and manage their listings on all the channels that they are on and manage the booking experience and all the guest experience, end to end, everything that has to do with guests or bookings, managing your data and interaction can be handled in OwnerRez.
Yeah, it's a really broad question. What does OwnerRez do? How are we different? We talk about the 8 verticals we have, which are really kind of product segments, feature areas, things like websites, channel management, like you talked about, Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking.com, accounting, property management. So there's 8 of these verticals or product segments. And I used to get at conferences and places where people would ask, like, what makes you different than fill in the blank other PMS or channel management system? And I remember over the years there's an evolution in that answer, because originally it was, well, we do this and they don't, or they do this and we don't. It's a conscious choice. And at some point I just gave up saying all of that. And I said, we're fast and we think about you when we build things. And they kind of look at you and then, okay, well, do you do websites? Yeah, we do websites, but that's not what really matters. What matters is we do things fast and we think about you when we build things. Which makes them kind of stop and not sure what to say. But it's just amazing as we talk and think back about speed as a feature, independence. It's there in everything, you know. It's how we build. It's why we built our channel management the way it was. I mean, we were invited to do channel management before 2018 when HomeAway told us, yeah, go away, you're too little, go talk to this company, Rentals United in the UK. And we could have done that.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been a very different approach. It would have been a really bad approach, but we could have done it to check it off the list. But we didn't, because it wouldn't be fast and we wouldn't be independent.
Yeah.
So we told them, no, we're not doing that. I wrote up really nasty emails and sent to, what's his name in Austin, Texas. I think I can probably still find that email. But why don't you keep it open? Why don't you let us, integrate, show you what we've built? We have the Booking.com integration. We've done the TripAdvisor integration. And it wasn't for years later. It was, I think, from 2012 to 2018, so 6 years, where finally we showed them this is what we had in terms of our other integration, showed them how good it was, lied our asses off, because we told them we had thousands more customers than we did. And then we eventually, I remember, and that was actually one of my favorite moments, actually, in our timeline, is the moment when one of the representatives from Vrbo on the phone or on the meeting said, okay, yeah, you guys look solid. Let's get this thing started. And we got one of our biggest, certainly the biggest at the time, channel integrations off the ground. So we could have done it, we could have gone an easier way, but probably not as good of a way. But it's that speed as a feature. It's the independent streak. It's there through everything.
Yeah, and it really ties back together thinking about it. Like the background is what makes it all possible. Having that background of hours, learning consulting, learning to figure out what people actually need and see the speed and the vacation rental experience on the ground, seeing the crazy questions that you get from guests, the odd, weird guests that you get, the things and situations that you would never think you would find yourself in that need to be considered and accommodated. Those are all the things that make it possible, that independent streak, to be fast and think about you, the vacation owner, as we build this product and this company. That's not something that you can just come in to an industry and get.
So call that a wrap for the first one?
Yep, let's wrap it.
Yeah, I liked it. It felt really good. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you at number 2. So send us your feedback, comments, and tell us
like
what you
and
like.
Subscribe. Do it.